Good morning, KOTA Territory. Welcome to what hopefully will be a new segment called KOTA Now Talks. Today we are talking about AI and kind of the images that can confuse some of our viewers, maybe the public, but a little bit kind of on this topic. Oh, before that, let me introduce myself. I'm Humberto Sanchez. Put my email in case you have any ideas. You can send it to me for segments or any desk ideas. I'm joined by Kate Robinson. There's her email in case you want to email her with any story ideas or any more information kind of regarding anything happening around KOTA Territory.
Yeah,
that'd be
right.
pretty great. So how are you, first of all, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing all right. We just finished Good Morning Black Hills. We're fine. How was Good Morning KOTA Territory? 'Cause I know you're the GMKT solo anchor.
Yes, it went well this morning. We had a lot going on, kind of with the weather, kind of threw people for a loop around our area. So I'm happy that we could report on some dangerous road conditions and kind of give people a heads up before they head out for their morning commute. So I think it's going to be a great day today.
Awesome, man. You talked about dangerous conditions. Let's talk about kind of dangerous conditions when it comes to social media and AI images. It's fairly new. A lot of people are still kind of learning the technology here and kind of generating images and kind of pushing these images to sort of confuse the public, or it can confuse the public in some aspects, in some points. So going off of that, I mean, why did you decide to do this story?
You did mention that AI is kind of a new thing that we are experiencing. This is the first presidential election that we've experienced where AI-generated images are making such a prevalent impact on how people are viewing candidates and how they are forming opinions about, what's going on, whether it's between natural disasters or images that are circulating about religious leaders and all of that stuff. So I decided to kind of dig deeper into how AI-generated images are created and why they are dangerous in spreading misinformation and false information ahead of something as crucial as a presidential election.
Right, and you mentioned, natural disasters, natural occurrences that happen, and we had one this year with Hurricane Helene, kind of hitting the southeastern part of the country, and you actually kind of brought up some of those images here. Let me pull them up so that way our viewers can see. Here are some of the AI-generated images that you kind of presented on Monday, kind of talking a little bit about, what about fake ones and how you can spot them. So quickly here, there's three that we're now seeing. And kind of out of these three, what can you tell us why they are AI-generated?
So one crucial thing to spotting AI-generated images is if an image you're seeing maybe on social media, on your Facebook, is really confirming to your biases and what you're looking at might not necessarily match up with what legitimate news sources are contributing to the matter. And so if you look, at Trump wading through what looks to be hurricane waters looking for survivors, if you were to look up if Trump was in Florida at that time, he was not in Florida at that time. He was not wading through hurricane waters, and he was not looking to rescue survivors. So that's how we know that that image is AI generated. You can also take a look at hands when looking at AI generated images, because most AI generators do have struggles making hands. You can see he only has 3 fingers.
Yeah, I was going to say, you can clearly see there that some of his other fingers just magically disappeared.
Yes, yeah, not really adding up. And yeah, he looks to only be having 4 fingers, and they're not necessarily the same size, and they look kind of off. The words on his hat are not real words. You can't really read them. You can't really tell what they are. And that picture of the little girl holding the dog, you can kind of notice her face looks a little bit cartoonish. If you look a little bit closer, there is a series of images that follows along with that girl and her dog, and as you would go along in those images, the color of the dog changes, the color of her boat changes. So just looking into little things like that, is this realistic? Would this little girl have survived on her own holding a dog in the water? What is the probability of that happening? Same with the dog on the roof. What is the probability of that dog being able to survive on a roof in that situation? Looking at those things can really help you kind of decipher whether or not an image is AI generated.
Yeah, and kind of talk a little bit about the little girl. I know that when this image first started circulating, I did definitely see that there was kind of a storyline going on with this little girl, and you can kind of see her change. I believe that we do have that image, but talking about kind of more AI-generated images, let's move on to the next one. There's this one. So can you kind of walk us through why this one is AI-generated?
So this kind of once again goes back to confirming your internal biases, why you're seeing this image and what the story is telling. I feel like if you are looking at an AI-generated image, and because you see it, multiple times throughout, your feed, and when you're scrolling, it can kind of change the story behind what this image is portraying. They don't always align. You can also see, again, his hands are all out of whack, and his tie is also hanging almost down to the ground. So that kind of gives you a hint that this image is not real, and it's not depicting something that he was actually doing in this scenario.
And then kind of I believe the last one that we're looking at here, we're looking at the Pope, and clearly there's something off about it. Like you said, maybe it looks a little bit too cartoonish, maybe it looks a little bit too unlikely to happen. Walk us through why this one is kind of AI generated.
Well, one way to kind of decipher or get more information on if an image is AI generated is you can kind of take a screenshot and run it through a program like Google Lens, and that will kind of reverse search it and bring up anything that is related to this image, or if there is proof that this situation happened, there would obviously be other scenarios and factual and credible news sources reporting on this. This image of the Pope, if you were to reverse search this image, it would come up as AI generated, but also because the Pope would never be allowed to wear a light, long, puffy puffer coat. He appears to be holding a cup that is kind of nonsensical, and as well as the cross chain hanging down from his neck, you can kind of tell that that is not realistic to what the Pope would be wearing.
Yeah, and I just realized that, talking about that, the cross around his neck, it does seem to kind of disappear with a very even the seam, or the kind of like the buttons don't even match up, and that's where it seems to be disappearing. But kind of bringing the camera back to us real quick. So knowing that these images are out there, and that this technology is continuing to evolve and make it a little bit harder for people to kind of spot the differences. I feel like nowadays we're in social media, we're playing spot the difference with certain images. Like you said, what are some of the most basic ways that people can find these kind of little differences?
Yeah, just the smallest things. Yes. Yeah, it really is. With the technology evolving so rapidly and people not necessarily being able to keep up with that evolution, just taking a look at tiny little things like we mentioned, their hands, the way that how many fingers they have, the airbrushing around the image can kind of shift and change as the image kind of goes from left to right as you're looking at it. Right. The first person might be crystal clear, and as the image continues to be generated, the next person is maybe a little blurry. They have an extra ear. They have kind of shifting hair color that doesn't really seem natural. Those are good ways to tell. Another good way to kind of tell or start to think about if an image is AI generated is if it just seems too good to be true. If you're scrolling through your news feed and all of our social media feeds are catered towards what we believe and what we're interested in, and if you're scrolling through and it kind of just seems a little bit too confirming of your existing biases, and you're not really sure, you didn't hear that this event happened in a major news outlet, and you're not really sure, that's another way that you can tell. And you can also always Google reverse image search that, or you can kind of look up Trump wading through hurricane waters. Did this happen? When did this happen? And you will usually be able to tell by that if the story was existing in national media outlets, and if it's a real image.
Exactly. And for those that are interested in kind of learning more about this, kind of the attack and more about the how has it evolved and what software people are using, of course we have the story on our website. Let me see if I can bring it up here real quick. There we go. How to spot AI-generated images ahead of this year's election, the dangers of spreading misinformation. Of course, done by Katie Robinson. Here we go. So, could you walk us through a little bit about some of the decisions behind your story?
Yeah, I have grandparents voting in this election, and I'm sure many people have parents and grandparents who are voting in this election. And, we as young people tend to kind of keep up with the evolution of technology just a little bit easier. And so it can be a lot harder for, people in the older generations to spot these images and maybe even understand what an existing confirmation bias is. So I really wanted to make sure that our viewers and the people in our area weren't getting confused or misled about some of the information that's kind of being spread ahead of this year's election, and kind of the dangers that can come with, if you see an AI generated image of one thing and that really confirms something that you were believing, and now, you're kind of leaning more towards one thing or forming an opinion on another, making sure that that event actually happened, that image was actually taken by a real credited photographer, person, news source. I really just wanted to make sure that our viewers could be able to form their own opinions on actual facts and evidence versus, stuff that other people made up.
Exactly, and like we mentioned before, this technology is continuing to evolve. What are some of the softwares that some of these images are generated with?
We have Gemini, which is by Google, so those are one of them. We have Midjourney is another one that people have been using a lot. That Midjourney is also evolving rapidly. It's one of the ones that is kind of on the thumb about getting, fixing the way that hands are generated, and even AI videos are created with eyes, and the way that, you can kind of tell by the person's eyes in an image if they're real or not, like if they're focused, if they're looking at the camera. So those are, I think, two of the biggest ones that people kind of are using and also need to watch out for, because if you do reverse search image and it comes up as something from Midjourney, that does seem like a credible resource, but it's actually an AI generated software.
Right, exactly. And you mentioned video, especially, there has been a lot of AI generated video, and it seems to be getting better every day. And with that in mind, is there anything else kind of regarding AI-generated images, videos that people should be aware about this election season, or just in general?
Yeah, I think keeping your eye on the technology, if this is something that you're worried about and you do kind of have a hard time telling the difference, kind of doing your own research and looking into some of the softwares, and even kind of generating your own images and kind of figuring out, I want to look at this, let me generate this image, and maybe I'll be able to spot how this is different from maybe a real image. Like even searching a real image that's coming up and then having the same image be AI generated, kind of being able to spot those differences can, I think, help people kind of learn and evolve as AI gets more advanced. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Kate, for joining us here at the KOTA Now desk. We really appreciate it. Hope to have you again on sometime. I know that you like to do a lot of these deep dives into some issues that are currently affecting the community or that have affected the community. So really appreciate you for that.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm excited about this.
Alrighty, well, for you watching, thank you for watching. We will be having a quick update on the weather, because there does seem to be some very interesting weather happening around KOTA Territory. But with that being said, thank you for watching. See you in a bit.